Armory Shaver's 1969 book, The New Soundscape. We're skipping ahead a little bit again. Chapter 6, 3 thresholds of the audible and 1 of the bearable. One day, we spoke of clavichords. Clavichords make such tiny, dulcet sounds that you can scarcely hear them. Heads cocked over the strings. We listened to its tremulous vibrato. Yeah, I've seen one of those before. They're just small. Shh, said Barbara. No one dared breathe, as out of the eggshell box a tiny musical message was whispered to us. And you say Bach actually preferred this to the organ and the piano? Doug asked after the recital was over. He did. Why? It was more subtle, and he was a sensitive man. But it is so soft you have to listen so hard. Yes, perhaps they had more acute hearing in Bach's days. Perhaps they did seem to be more satisfied with soft and moderately loud sounds. One of the interesting things we discover when we look at history is that music keeps getting louder. All the famous old violins by Stradivarius and the others were strengthened during the 19th century so that they could produce stronger sounds. The piano replaced the harpsichord and the clavichord largely because it produced stronger sounds. Today, as the electric guitar and the contact microphone demonstrate, we are no longer content with natural sound at all, but we want to boost it up to bigger than life size. Amplifiers are now available of sufficient strength to push sounds right past the threshold of pain. Boy, isn't that true? You go to some concerts, it's one of the things people know that I have some challenges, right? One of the challenges I have is loud noise. I don't do well with it. Maybe in that way I'm like Bach, who knows? But yeah, so I go to very few concerts. Has to be somebody I really wanted to see for me to deal with hours of pain. What's that? That's when the sound pressure becomes so strong, the eardrums, that it gives you physical pain or may even make your ears bleed. Ultimately, you grow deaf. Everyone looked a bit puzzled and scared. The amplifier as a lethal weapon. Amp as a weapon. Say that something. The amplifier as a lethal weapon through which music could conceivably destroy the human organism instead of bringing pleasure to it. But with the memory of our recent dance band still causing the adrenaline in my ears to bubble, I realized how close we were, in fact, coming to the pain threshold of bearable sound, which is around 120 decibels. There has always been a certain malevolent streak among composers to shock the audience. Yeah, musicians, we do love shock, right? That's the truth. This is one thing I like to repeat to people, right? We don't follow musicians because they're good, most knowledgeable about the truth, or live the most upright lives. We follow them because they're great musicians, right? If you add those other things on top of it, that's fine. I love the best Christian rock artist, right? But they got to be the best. I'm not just listening to any old person of any genre, right? I'm not wasting my time on that. I want some good music, right? One of the things that makes music is a certain shockingness. I don't know if shock's the right word, right? But something that makes you go, oh, wow. right? Makes you exclaim something. Gee, or If it doesn't do that, it doesn't have some type of shock, right? Why listen to it? Okay, let's continue on. There has always been a certain malevolent streak. So malevolent means like, evil, or mal means bad, right? So malevolent would be wanting something bad, something like badness. A certain malevolent streak among composers to shock the audience. A certain tendency towards pugilism, that's an old word for boxing, bordering at times on brutality, which is evident in composers as diverse as Beethoven, bum 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 bum, Berlioz, bum 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 bum, Stravinsky, bum 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 bum, and Stockhausen. Oh, I can't think of any Stockhausen in my head. I thought maybe I'd get a phrase and pop into my head for each one of those when I'm thinking brutality in a composer. Okay. I recalled that the critic Susan Sontag, speaking of the theater of happenings, noted that its most striking feature was its abusive treatment of the audience. During the Middle Ages, the Pied Piper of Hamelin lured his victims off to their destruction by the irresistible sweet tones of his flute. Today, the sadist with his amplifier can kill his victims on the spot. I love the old Marshall stacks, right? There's something to that. You see a punk band, rock band, metal band, and that guitarist has that big stack of amps. Now you can get as much sound out of a smaller thing, I'm sure. Tech improvements, but there's still something to the size of it too. So it's not always just straight the shock of the actual sound, which you can get with smaller equipment today, but it's also the visuals of it, right? There's a theater to music. Continuing on. My class reacted suspiciously to my works. I was getting carried away. He is getting carried away, especially when he says the amplifier can kill the victim on the spot. But I did not think, and as I write this, still do not think, that my pessimism and fear were unjustifiable. So there's a right to be afraid of the increasing noise in our world and our musics. That extremely loud noises seem to glut the brain sensation receiving capacity, making it impossible for the human being to function, is known by police departments which now use sirens to bring riots to a standstill. Not only that, they actually have sound cannons police use. I first saw them on the news back when I was living in Pittsburgh. There was a protest against the G8 summit, and they used it against the protesters there, the sound cannons. They thought that was a good way to disperse the crowd. Continuing on, deafness of the kind found in the iron foundry may indeed soon cease to be merely an occupational disease. At any rate, a society which experiments with sounds of humanly destructive intensities in the military lab cannot seriously expect the nastier of its private citizens not to participate in these vengeful amusements in whatever ways are at hand. Vengeful amusements. I suspect he probably didn't like metal music. Let's see, late 1960s, before metal existed. Let's see, what was out in 1969? Well, Led Zeppelin had its first album or second album by then. So there's some loud music. It just, Ozzy Osbourne hadn't yet founded Black Sabbath, so there wasn't metal yet. I think that was like 71, 72. I could be wrong, if you find it wrong. But yeah, I could think about the Beatles, Helter Skelter would have been out at this point too. That's a loud, heavy thing. There is one threshold of the bearable, and there are three of the audible. We can have sounds so soft they cannot be heard by the human ear. For instance, if we strike a tuning fork and listen, the sound seems to die and fade away, though we still see the fork vibrating. And if we amplify it by placing the fork on a tabletop, we can hear it again, providing that it was still generating sound all along, even though the sound was, before the resonance given it by the table, below the threshold of audibility for the human ear. So too soft to hear. We also have sounds so high or low that they cannot be heard. At about 16 cycles per second, we cease to hear low sounds and begin to feel them as massive vibrations, which may shake the room. Actually, this is used in concert amps too, right? Where they have it, you can feel the vibration because they're incorporating sounds that are too low for us to hear. It's one way to artificially make music moving technologically. At 20,000 cycles per second or less, so really high pitch, higher sounds disappear as they pass the human range of hearing. Interesting, I remember probably about 20 years ago on the internet, there's a thing going around where it would play a pitch that was supposedly only be able to be heard by somebody that was under 20 or something. And by then, most people had lost that level of hearing. These things can be demonstrated with an oscillator. And young people are always a little proud when they discover they can hear sounds somewhat higher than old people. Already knew it in 1969. A purely physiological fact resulting from youth. Many animals can out-hear men, of course, both in the sensitivity of very soft sounds and their ability to hear higher frequency. The cat, for instance, can hear sounds as high as 60,000 CPS, which would make sense if it's hunting birds who make sounds that are at a wide range of things. We can draw a chart showing the perimeter of the humanly audible. The ordinate shows the intensity of the sound in decibels, so loudness, with 0 dB fixed at threshold of audibility, while the abscissa shows the frequency range. You're going to have to help me with those words. I didn't take math, It's for a long, long time. I'm assuming abscissa and ordinate are maybe the up and left and right and plotting. But here's the image he has. He definitely scientizes things more than me, which is good, because people have to think about things differently. But there we go. That's the area of human hearing. So down here you can't, and above here you can. That way and that way. History shows that music is constantly getting louder. In reaction, it has been getting softer too. Anton Webern wrote diminutive pieces in which there are sounds bordering on the threshold of audibility. They are so soft that you can speculate on how soft Morton Feldman intends the sounds to be when he instructs a percussion player to play chimes or vibraphone with the fleshy parts of the fingertips instead of a mallet. Interesting. So Anton Webern, who I've heard before, Morton Feldman, who I haven't, so I need to go check and listen out there. We'll continue there next time. So page 26 if you're following along in the book. Have a great day.